So we're talking about emotional eating. To be honest, this is probably what the whole theme of this week is going to be. So because of your guys' popular demand, not demands by popular demand, but your guys' requests, I will be also like kind of continuing the theme of the momentum building challenge. And you guys talked a lot about how much you wanted to hear more from like the team, not just me, which is dope. So like you guys mentioned, you guys really enjoyed the lives I did with like Coach Grant, Coach Abby, and Coach Caroline. Maybe I may even get Connor in here on this too as well. So, but this week, I think we're going to get into a lot of the emotional eating side of stuff because a little bit deeper. So I'd love to know. So tell me in the comments below, do you struggle with that? Do you struggle with emotional eating? Do you have a hard time with not eating your sorrows away with food? Like when does it normally happen? Like give me a little bit of an idea in the comments below if you're comfortable with that. What the scoop is with your emotional eating? Like where does that normally happen? What triggers it? Is it normally like all this, is it like the more stress, worry, and anxiety? Is it more depression, doubting, and that kind of thing? Like what's the deal? So tell me a little bit more about like what your story is. Not like your whole story if you don't want to, but just a little bit of an idea of what's going on with your emotional eating. That way I know this content's relevant to you guys. But I'm going to pull up in my notes here. And whatnot. So, because here's the thing, guys, you have to understand this. When it comes to emotional eating, there really is a couple reasons why this is a big deal. Because a lot of times people act like emotional eating just isn't that big of a thing, but it's a massive thing. It's a huge deal for a couple different reasons. Number one, and then actually, guys, what we'll do is towards the end, we'll see about doing some Q&A. Because I'm seeing some questions come in, which are great questions. So, but here's the thing. Why is emotional eating a big deal? There's two reasons emotional eating is a big deal. Number one is from a fat loss perspective. Then number two, from a headspace perspective. Here's why. From a fat loss perspective, I'll be totally honest with you. If you don't quit emotional eating, you'll never lose weight. If you do not get on the other side of your emotional eating, you will never lose weight. Because think about it. Are you an emotional human? Yes, we all are. Right. That's part of being not a robot. You have emotions. It's normal. We're supposed to have negative emotions. So if you don't know how to process those, or ground yourself outside food, you will never make progress. Right. Imagine trying to save money, but then all of a sudden, every time you get emotional, you dump your bank accounts. You see how like hard that would make it? If every time, let's say your biggest goal is to save money, but then every time you have a bad day, you literally go on a shopping spree. It will make it impossible to save money long term because you'll make a little bit of progress, you'll spend it all. You'll make save a little bit of money, you'll go spend it all. Well, this is why it's so hard for fat loss, because if every time you go to like lose weight, you do good for a couple of weeks, then all of a sudden you have a bad day at work, boom, you go to binge or you go to emotionally eat. Every time you're like, all right, I'm finally getting a stride with this. Boom, kid gets in trouble at school. Now you're overwhelmed because your kid might get expelled or whatever the case may be. So from a fat loss perspective, it's a big deal. If you do not get your handle on emotional eating, you will never lose weight, which is why even inside coaching, we got a lot of clients on this call right now. It's why on the right out the gate inside coaching, our first stage, it's called dieting from the inside out. That's our first goal out the gate. We literally tell everyone out the gate when it comes to coaching, our stage one, you're not ready. Most people are not ready for weight loss. We do that in stage two. Stage one is about getting your foundation fixed, right? That's why a lot of you guys, like, we'll tell you the pressure's off. We don't care if you lose weight in stage one because it doesn't matter, right? If you struggle with emotional eating and binge eating and you lose like 30 pounds, but we don't address that shit, you'll gain it all back, right? That's the biggest mistake most coaches make is they get a client and they go take them straight into weight loss, but they never fix the shit that's causing the problem. So that's why we do our thing differently. So this is why, from a fat loss perspective, it's extremely tactical to handle your emotional eating, because most people right about now are like, well, Jared, I get it. I get what you're saying, but like I need to lose weight for this wedding or for vacation. It's like, I don't give a fuck, because that's the mentality that's going to keep you dieting for decades. So from a fat loss perspective, fixing your emotional eating is tactical as fuck, because without fixing your emotional eating, you will never lose weight long term. And then number two, this is the big, I would argue even a bigger one. It's not good for your headspace, like at all. You realize when you emotionally eat, it's what I would label as emotional suppression. Okay. Does anything ever get better by suppression? Well, no. So here's the reality. If you go through years and years or decades of emotional suppression, you don't just become numb to the negative emotions, you become numb to the positive ones. You become numb to the positive ones too. So like, okay, yeah, you don't feel worry, stress, and anxiety as much, but now you aren't as present with your kids. Now like Christmas isn't as happy and joyous. Now all of a sudden you're not even like feeling the good emotions. Now you don't quite enjoy date nights so much. Now like you don't experience happiness, worthiness, gratitude, ecstasy, pleasure, because we can't just pick and choose what we become numb with. You can't just numb to the negative and somehow feel all the positive. It doesn't work like that. When you over time suppress and distract and numb to the negative emotions with food, you will notice long term you will suppress and you will distract and numb yourself to the positive emotions. So this isn't just a big deal from a fat loss perspective. This is a big deal from like your entire well-being, mental and emotional well-being as a human. You have to understand this, because here's the thing, and I'm definitely going to deviate from my notes on this one, because here's the truth. Because here's what emotional eating is doing. Emotional eating is literally telling your inner child, your inner self, you are not allowed to feel. That's literally what you're doing when you emotionally eat and suppress your emotions with food. And I know here's the thing, don't take this out of context. I'm just trying to help you. When it comes to emotional eating, you guys are not being malicious. You guys are not, I know you're not on purpose trying to like, you're just doing the best you can. But here's the thing, part of my role as your coach and your leader is to show you what you're doing wrong so what we can deploy against to fix it. Okay. So here's what happens when you're emotional eating. When you're emotional eating, you are basically trying to not feel the suck. You're sad, you try to distract and suppress with ice cream, or that may be the only coping mechanisms your parents taught you when you were little. So you go to like do your thing so you have a bad day at work, boss yells at you. So now you go hide your emotions and sorrows with the pantry just because it's your only moment of relief. Or let's say you have a kid that's kind of going through some shit at home, or you and your partner are on the brink of a divorce, and the only feeling of control you have or dopamine to your brain is the fucking ice cream for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I get that. I hold space for that. But you have to understand that doesn't make it okay long-term to do, because it's just not healthy, and you wouldn't do it for anyone else. Because here's the truth. Actually, I'm adding to my notes really quickly. Let's see. Sorry, my ADHD is kicking in real hard. Okay, cool. Sorry, I get my brain goes like juggles a million different concepts at once. So then I don't want to miss anything. So I just added it into my notes. But anyway, because you have to understand this, you're an emotional human. Like, listen to me when I say this. Like, don't take, like, here's the thing, guys. When I start talking about this stuff, half of you guys go, okay, I'm in this. And the other half you go, Jared's in frou-frou land. I want you to pay really close attention to this. You are an emotional human. That's one of the things that makes you a human. So to tell an emotional human to not be emotional doesn't even make sense. Here's the thing. This is the truth. When you emotionally eat, it's because you're trying not to feel those emotions. You don't want to feel sad. You don't want to feel worried. You don't want to feel lonely. You don't want to feel anxious. You don't want to feel depressed because they hurt. I get it. But here's the thing. You're a human being who has emotions. You are literally just a giant ball of emotions. So if you just suppress and shut half of those off, you're literally shutting off part of you, which is not okay. Which is no wonder it causes things to spiral out of control, like weight loss and sabotage and happiness and not giving a fuck anymore and whatever else is happening, the negative stuff. But you have to understand, like, this is why most advice for emotional eating is garbage. It's why I don't get along with most coaches, is because how many times I'm curious, you guys, what's some of the worst emotional eating advice you've ever heard? Have you guys ever heard someone say, oh, just get that food out of the house and that's the game plan for the rest of your life? Or just go on a walk, or just have an apple instead, or just try to ignore it, or just work harder, or just don't. That's the worst fucking advice ever. So you have to understand, though, you're an emotional human. So telling an emotional human to not be emotional is right up there with telling you not to breathe. It's just, we're biologically and psychologically built to be emotional, right? It's a big deal. So you have to understand, if that's the case, we have to be able to go about handling your emotions and regulating your emotions in a really good way. Okay, because again, telling an emotional human to not be emotional just doesn't even make sense. So I want to give you guys a little bit of an analogy, or a little bit of a story about what I did with a kid one time. So I won't name who they are in case their parents are watching, but this was local to me. I knew the kid. So I'll just say this. We were at, because just to show you what happens when you just hold space for emotions. I like, when it comes to emotional stuff, I like putting everything through the lens of a child, because it changes everything. And we all have an inner child. That's what handling your emotional stuff is, just handling your inner child. So you have to understand this. Sorry, whenever I talk a lot like this, my nose itches really bad. I think it's the vibrations of me like speaking. I don't know. But you have to like in my head. I don't know. Anyway, so we were at dinner one time, and the people we were with had some children there. There were multiple children at this dinner event, and I knew them all very, very well. Friends, family, that kind of thing. Well, one of the children was being what I would call a little terrorist. Literally, one of these kids was, we were at like a just this restaurant. One of the kids was being literally like going batshit crazy, throwing a temper tantrum, freaking out, like yelling, hitting, just causing a scene, being a little shithead, just like little, like, I don't know. They were probably between, 5 and 8, right? Somewhere around there. They're just being a little kid, not getting their way. They were causing a scene. So, so they knew me well enough where this was appropriate. I basically said, "Hey, so-and-so, do you want to go outside with me?" Cause I just wanted to get them out of the restaurant because their guardians were not watching, or they were watching them, but their guardians were not doing anything about it. They were not like stopping the situation, and I did not want to have anything to do with that. And it was appropriate. So what I did, I said, "Hey, so-and-so, do you want to go outside with me? Like, do you want to go outside with me?" They're like, and I just grabbed them and took them outside. But this child is used to their emotions being suppressed, right? This child is used to the parent just saying, "No, don't do that," and like all this crazy shit. Like, get over it. You'll be fine. Like, lots of emotional suppression. So I took the kid outside, and there's a pond out back, right? There's this, at the restaurant, behind the restaurant, it sat on a pond. So I said to the kid, I said, "Hey, do you want to, I'll just make it easy. We'll just call the kid my niece." So I said, "Hey, do you want to throw rocks in the pond with me?" And they go, "Yeah." Okay. So I picked up the handful of rocks. Okay. And I said, "All right." And keep in mind, they're like fuming. They're like not feeling so good. They're like post temper tantrum. And I go, "Okay, I want you to," and I go, "Here, let's throw, I said, "All right, let's throw the rocks in the pond." And I held my hand out with a thing of rocks. And I said, "Well, hang on a second." I go, "Every rock, you have to tell me what you're feeling. You have to tell me about what emotions you're feeling." So Uncle Jared is holding space for these emotions. I'm not suppressing them. I'm not disciplining them. I'm not telling them to get over it. I literally hold out my hand to these rocks, and I go, "So go ahead." And they grab a rock and they go, "I'm mad." And they throw the rock in the lake. I go, "Good. What else?" And they go, "I'm sad." I go, "Okay, what else?" Oh, sorry, my camera is not wanting to focus. And I said, "What else?" And they go, and they grab it and they go, "I don't know." And I go, "Oh, so you're confused or overwhelmed?" And they go, "Yeah." 5 minutes into that kid snapped out of it, and they were good. Literally, they were good. What do you think would have happened if I just kept telling them to get over it, quit doing that, behave, and all this stuff? It wouldn't have gone very well because I would have been suppressing their emotions. But in this case, I literally took them outside, and I said, "Hey, I want you to tell me what you feel." Now, I did it with, now because it's a child, they're not going to just sit and have a therapy session with me, but I made it a game. I go, "Every rock you throw, you have to tell me how you feel." And they're like, mad, angry, worried, whatever. And I got that little fucker to talk to me, and all of a sudden, they emotionally regulated like that. I'm talking about 5 minutes, a temper tantrum. So the reason I tell you that story is because you have to start treating your own emotions and your own emotional stuff the exact same way. Is this making sense? Will you tell me in the comments if this is making sense? Because here's the thing. Most people, when it comes to emotional eating, they just think they're just fucking up fat loss. It's not true. Yes, you are doing that, but it's doing a lot more damage. But it's also, it's also like affecting your inner child. This is the shit no one talks about. Because here's the thing. When you emotionally eat, you're literally telling this little boy or little girl inside of you that says, "You're not allowed to feel in my presence." Would anyone here ever do that to a child? A lot of you guys are parents or aunts and uncles and whatever, or grandparents even. If your kid came to you because, like, if your kid saw their dog die and they are sad and overwhelmed because they saw their dog get hit by a car, would you, when they just want to cry with you, would you say, "Mommy doesn't want to hear it. You're not allowed to feel like that around mommy. Go get cereal"? Would anyone do that? Of course not. But that's what you're doing to yourself when you emotionally eat. When you emotionally eat, you're doing the equivalent of looking at a little kid who just saw their dog die and say, "You are not allowed to feel like this around me. I want you to go hide those emotions with cereal because mommy doesn't want to hear it." That's exactly what you're doing. You see? So This is why we have to learn to hold space. Because I would ask all of you, if you had a child that had that happen, they saw their dog die and they're emotional, or if your best friend just went through a breakup and they're wanting to vent to you, what do? Every one of you would say you would hold space for them. Every single one of you would just listen to them. Every single one of you would hold them. Every single one of you would love on them. None of you, if your best friend came to you after a breakup or getting a divorce, say, I don't want to hear it. Go get cereal instead. I don't want to talk to you. None of you would do that. But that's what you do when you emotionally eat. You have this inner child that sees and feels something really negative that just wants you to see them, see the emotion, feel the emotion, and you go, you're not allowed to feel that around me. Then here's the thing. What do children do? This is the crazy part. What do children do when they're not seen or heard and they're ignored? They act out, right? So when as a child, so it's no wonder your inner child is acting out with not being motivated, not being consistent, always sabotaging, wanting to quit, wanting to say, fuck it. Do we see this common pattern in fat loss, how this is going? This is why we have to go about this differently. So here's the 2 hacks. Okay. If you're taking notes, write these down. I'm going to make this ungodly simple for you guys. So damn it, my nose is so itchy. I don't know why. Whenever I go to podcast or do this, maybe it's this mic. I don't know. Anyway, so here's the 2 hacks to end emotional eating for good. This is one we teach all of our clients. There we go. So we need to do the one thing that we've been doing our best not to do, which is holding space. Emotional eating is suppressing the negative emotions. So what we need to do is hold space for the emotions. We do that in 2 different ways. Number 1, you meditate or sit with it. Number 2, you journal about it. I'm going to elaborate on each of these. So if you, when it comes to the emotional eating, you are triggered, you feel this negative emotion, you get fired from work, you and your partner are fighting, your kid's going through a rough time, you're just anxious as fuck. Like I woke up anxious this morning, right? We all have things like that happen. So step 1, sit with it. This morning, I woke up anxious. You know what I did? I sat on the edge of my bed and just let myself be anxious. Have you guys ever had a child that was throwing a temper tantrum and you tried to stop it? That doesn't work. What do you do when a child has a temper tantrum? You just let them have it and then it gets it out of their system, right? So what do you do when, if you want to get over a fear, what do we all know to do? Face the fear. Right? We have to bring it into our ecosystem. So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling worried, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling, I don't care, whatever it is, sit with it. Let yourself feel it. Right? Just like if your kid saw a dog get hit by a car, you wouldn't distract them. You would just be with them. You would be with the kid. I want you to start looking at your inner darkness as if it's a child. Be with that motherfucker. Sit with it. Don't try to get rid of it. If you're anxious, pull up a chair for your anxiety. If you're sad, just go, it's okay to feel sad in my body. Because you know what happens when you do that? It now gives it room to leave. What happens when you face a fear? What happens when you're like, I'm scared of heights. I'm getting on the roof. The scared of heights goes away. It's why every person that jumps out of a plane that's scared is totally cool going back up again. When you become like the space that makes everything okay to feel, a lot of your problems will go away. If you're a mom or a parent or like someone like that, grandma, grandpa, you're the space that makes everything okay to feel, aren't you? Your best friends know they can come to you with everything. Your kids or grandkids know they can come to you with everything, right? It's the same thing here. Be the space that makes everything okay to feel. Because all you're doing is sitting with it. You're not trying to do anything with it. You're not trying to get it to go away. You're just going, I'm going to sit with this. Guys, even with clients, if a client gets triggered like by the scale, my favorite thing to have them do is go sit with it. Go get triggered, go sit with the trigger. Go get overwhelmed, go sit with the overwhelm. It's a game changer. Number 2, the second thing is journal. A lot of you guys are in a place where you're like, there's no way I can sit with myself. I'm not ready for it. Respect. I get it. That should be your number 1 priority, because if you can't sit with yourself, how do you expect to overcome yourself? Right? So here's the thing. Journaling is another powerful one because it at least makes you feel like a busybody. I did this morning as well. I sat with my emotions, my anxiety, and I did a journal session with it. So one of the things Ashley McKinnon talks about a lot too. Ashley has gone through like 4 or 5 journals in her exploration, right? So what journaling about your emotions does is it tricks your brain into holding space. When you journal about your emotions, you feel like a busybody. You're like, but you're journaling about what you feel. So when you're feeling anxious, worried, overwhelmed, Ashley said 6. There you go. 6 journals. Just think about 6 full college ruled notebooks of like emotions that's no longer in Ashley's head. Think about that. Like the first time I finished a journal, I'm like, this is no longer inside me, bouncing around my brain. That's how powerful this is. So what I want you to do is next time you're feeling emotional, either sit with it. If you can't sit with it, journal about it. So when you're feeling anxious, worried, lonely, depressed, overwhelmed, whatever it is, I want you to go get a journal, just a cheap notebook or a piece of paper. And all I want you to do is write about what you feel. One of our other clients that has like seen some of the biggest success in the 180 Academy, she does this with her shredder. Her name's Marjorie. I did a podcast with her. She literally writes about what she feels, puts it in the shredder. It's gone. It's like flushing the toilet. It's just gone. But what you're doing is you're writing about what you feel like this. You're like, well, like, okay, this morning, here's what I did. When I was in my journal session, I'm like, well, I woke up with anxiety today. Not quite sure why. I'm worried. I'm just in the back of my head. I'm worried about X, Y, and Z. This is on my mind. This is on my mind. Well, this is on my mind, but that doesn't even sound logical. So I don't know why I'm worrying about that. And then I'm just getting what's in to come out. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing is you're getting what's in here to come out on paper. No one's reading it. You're not going back to reflect on it. It's an emotional dump. You're getting what is in your head, on your heart, or in your gut on paper. So it's no longer inside of you. And then I always say journaling's just like pooping. You just know when you're done, and that's it. Those are the two keys to to never emotional eating. Just every time you go to emotionally eat, you're going to sit with it or journal about it. That's it. One of our other clients, one of the things she mentioned during the course of the momentum building challenge was she now, like, whenever she feels the urge to emotionally eat, she just doesn't do it for an hour. She lets herself feel that emotion for that hour. And guess what happens at the end of the hour? She doesn't feel like eating that food now. You have to start holding space for these emotions and treating it. And because it says two things. Number one, this is tactical as fuck with fat loss because not emotionally eating is a hell of a calorie deficit. But then number two, it's also a very healthy and therapeutic like way to process your emotions for the next 30, 40, 50 years till you die. Right? Imagine emotionally eating for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Nothing good comes from that. Imagine handling your emotions by sitting with them and breathing through them and letting yourself feel them and then they go away. And then also, or journaling about them and writing about how you feel. You can totally do that till you die, till for the next 30, 40, 50 years. This is how we go about all of this. So is this making sense, guys? Is there any questions that you guys have? Because I definitely want to hold space for any questions. I don't have super long, so I can take a few. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat and then we'll go from there. Do you guys also like this kind of content? Do you guys enjoy this kind of content around like this kind of stuff that's like not many people talk about? It's my favorite stuff to talk about, to be honest with you. So, let me scroll through here and see if I saw any questions. I know there were some. Let's see. Amy says, it's really important for me to journal when I'm at work because I can't just walk away and sit with it. It works every time. Absolutely. Guys, we this is one of the tactics we'll have people do, like if they're like at a place like where you can't do that, just do it in your phone even. It's crazy. Nancy asks what's the best way to start journaling? Literally, here's the only prompt you need. What do I feel right now? And write. That's the only prompt. You're not prompting. You're not writing out your goals. You're not making affirmations. You're not documenting your day. You're literally going, what do I feel right now? What? Write it. Well, how's that make me feel? Right. Well, what about do I feel? Well, how's that make me feel? All you're doing is writing about what you feel. That is the only prompt. That's it. It's super simple. Let's see. Sarah says, OMG, I feel that the past few months because I've been consistently journaling. Now emotions have taken the driver's seat now. There we go. I'm telling you, got to get back into journaling. Guys, you have to understand journaling like this. Journaling and sitting with your emotions are going to be awkward as fuck for the first bit because you haven't done it. Imagine not taking a shit for 30 years or for a year. It's going to be a little off at first, but once you start doing this on a regular basis, it'll be a lot better. Katie asks, if you're bored, do you find an activity or sit with your boredom? Well, that's a great question. So boredom eating and emotional eating, I consider two different things for most of the time. So here's what I mean. If you're just truly bored, go find something to fix the boredom, right? If you're truly just bored, go find something to, like, you just need an activity. Eating is not the greatest activity to do when you're bored. Go on. This is when you can go on a walk, go do that hobby, go make that thing, go whatever it is, right? Call a friend, text your mom, whatever. If you are purely bored, no negative emotions, just bored, then just go do an activity, go do something to fix the boredom. Now, here's the thing though. A lot of boredom eating is closet emotional eating because a lot of people feel like they have to be doing something because they're not comfortable being with themselves. So if you're like, oh, I boredom eat, I had nothing good to watch on TV. It's my day off of work. My kids are at friend's house. And then if you find yourself getting anxious, because boredom and anxious are two different things. If you're just bored, that's one thing. But a lot of people who think they're boredom eating are closet emotional eating because them being bored, it's not that they're bored, they're just undistracted. And then when they're undistracted, most people are not comfortable sitting with themselves in silence and not doing anything. So that's when they like hide that anxiety with eating. So it really depends on which one. Let's see. Suzanne asks, what if you don't know what you feel? This is amazing. That's when we start writing about it. To be honest, I don't know what I feel. I kind of feel numb. Part of me thinks I'm happy, but then part of me thinks I'm complacent. Part of me thinks I'm sad. Just talk about it. Guys, think of it this way. If you're having trouble with like the prompt of what do I feel, treat this as if you're in a dialogue with someone. If your best friend said, hey, what do you feel right now? What would you tell them? You go, I don't know. And then what would they say? Go, well, is it good? I'm not sure. Is it bad? Kind of. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, I just kind of feel... That's all you're doing. You're literally treating this as if you are talking to a best friend. Guys, because here's the thing. This is now going to be your go-to instead of going to the pantry. This is the beautiful part of it. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Is there any more questions? Because otherwise I have to hop off in just a couple minutes. Anything else? Going once. Let me double check my time here. Cool. Going twice. Wonderful. Guys, well, this has been fucking fire. I really appreciate you guys hopping on. This was a bigger live, which I love. If you guys need anything, let me know. Be sure, if you haven't already, either comment in this thread if you watched it live or if you're watching the replay. And even if you're watching the replay, answer the questions and the prompts that I had so I can still know where you guys are at with everything. Otherwise, let me know if you need anything. Let's fucking crush this week. Also, enough of you guys did say you wanted me to do a big Labor Day sale of some sort, so I will be posting about that at some point today. Otherwise, I will talk to you all soon.